Mm.
Even if the person doesn't agree or they have a different viewpoint, that's okay. But if you really believe in something, you're willing to state it and support it and argue for your point of view.
Hello and welcome to Shared.Care's What is Manly radio show and podcast. Men feel more lonely, lost, and not useful in society than ever in history. Males are not attaching to school, work, or women. What it means to be a man appears lost. Is there a framework for being manly that we can unearth?
Welcome to Share.Care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.Care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.Care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
Hello, Paul. How are you going?
Hi, Damien. I'm doing great.
It's wonderful, isn't it? The world we live in, as much as COVID was a really annoying and probably very tragic for many people, it also gave us the ability to discover, we can actually talk to people across the planet and learn from each other. I think that's
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I
And
agree.
because you're a teacher by background, from what I understand, you're both a student and a teacher of management and leadership skills for the past 40 years, and you have
Mhm.
expertise in managing stress and dealing with difficult personalities, different leadership styles, and the different leadership process. So I'd imagine, from your perspective, you would have an understanding of what it takes for people to learn and how to teach people. Is that what are some of the key takeaways that you've learned in your 40 years of teaching that people can learn? Can they learn or can they be taught?
Well, I think leadership is a very important role that people play.
Mhm.
I think we need more leaders,
Mm.
people that are willing to step up and say what they think and take action, make things happen.
Yeah.
Also, leaders bring people together. There's a lot of division in the country. There's a lot of, I don't know,
Mm.
polarization, if you will. So I think leaders that can bring the group together and establish common goals
Oh,
is
yeah.
really important. Um, I've done a lot of studying leadership and what leaders do, and I've concluded they basically use three styles to get things done: directing, you
Mhm.
tell people what to do; discussing,
Yep.
like we're having a discussion right now; you ask questions; and delegating. I
Mm.
think those are the three big styles leaders use. They use them every day.
Mm.
Matter of fact, in every meeting they're in, I bet they use all three styles.
Yeah,
So I've
true.
spent a lot of time studying those styles and what makes people good at it and where do they fall down and things like that.
'Cause you mentioned, there about standing up. You said people need to
Mhm.
stand up as leaders. And when we look at, the world today and the topic that we're dealing with of what is manly, in particular men today, a lot of men feeling lost, lonely, and not like
Mm,
they don't have a place in society. What have you
mm,
seen from that perspective, with that? Because I understand from, men now at higher education, there's only about 40% of men completing higher education. What have you
mm.
seen?
Well, I think it's important to know what you believe and value. I think it starts
Mm,
there. And I think the second part of that is having the courage and confidence to state what you believe and value. Um,
mm,
there's too much, I think, today of trying to please everyone and trying to be politically correct and
mm,
trying to, fit in and not really be honest with yourself and state how you think and how you feel. So I think people, men in particular, need to be willing to clarify or first decide or determine what they think and believe, and then state that clearly and succinctly.
That's an interesting point that you say of being able to clarify what it is that you think and believe, and that I guess that takes a bit of self-reflection to go to have
Yeah.
worked that out. Is that something
hmm
you have to go on a journey to find what you believe, or is it something you can just say, "Well, this works for me"?
I think you go. I don't know if you have to go on a journey, maybe an internal journey, but you have to ask yourself questions about what do I believe? Do I
Mm,
think that's true? Do I agree with that? What's my opinion? I think sometimes we don't know how we feel about a particular thing until we get more involved in it, until we
mm,
try an approach or a technique and see what works. Um, some of it's trial and error, some of it's just digging in and seeing what happens. But you got to be open. You got to be open to your own thoughts. You got to be open to what other people tell you, the feedback you get. You have to spend time, yeah, thinking and
mm,
reflecting and analyzing, what you do, why you do it, and what are your core beliefs and values. I mean, it's something I think that takes a long time to really crystallize or get really clear in your mind. What are my core values? What are my core beliefs? And
mm.
it takes a while, you know. We see a lot of leaders; they're flip floppers, right? They one week they say one thing, next week they say something else, or when they're speaking to one group of people, they slant their message one way, they slant it a different way when they're talking to a different group of people.
Mm.
They're afraid of how the group might respond if they really told them how they believe or what they really believe. So I don't know. That's not good. I don't think.
Yeah, because
I
what
think you
you
got to be respectful and you got to be honest with the people you're interacting with and communicating with.
But that's an interesting point that you've said there about because really what you're talking about is leading yourself. But this
Yeah.
component of standing up for what you believe, or firstly working out what it is you believe, but then being
Yeah.
able to stand it up for, and you added that word respectful, which I think is, that's a combination of both. What do you think that's lost in now today, where people don't seem to understand what it is that they want, but then again, not being able to say, "Hey, this is what I believe in," because you can do that in a respectful way, and some people may not like it, and that's okay. But what do you
Yeah.
think's been lost from people, particularly men, doing that?
I think there's a certain fear of
Mm,
upsetting people. I think there's concern that you won't be liked if you state what you really believe.
mm,
Um, I think we have to know what we believe and we have the courage to state it. We also have to be open to what other people believe and
yeah,
their views and their values, right?
mm,
So we have to be, it goes both ways. We have to be firm in our position, but we got to be open to what the other person believes, and fully consider their point of view.
yeah,
And sometimes their point of view affects, what we believe. So we need to be open to considering fully what their thoughts are and what their rationale is and their
mm.
arguments for it and that type of thing.
Do you think part of the reason people, younger men, for example, sitting in basements playing video games, and it's not a slant on video games, I like video games.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't play them that often now, but I have had my share of playing video games. But do
yeah.
you think part of this reason why they're feeling lost and, well, would be lonely but part of the reason they're feeling lost is that they haven't taken that time to work out what it is they believe in, what it is they stand for?
hmm Well, I see a lot of younger kids in their 20s, let's say,
Mm.
and late teens, and their parents are really micromanaging or planning their activities
Mm.
and their social life and their athletic life and what have you. The kids are not exploring and taking the initiative to organize
Mhm.
events and baseball games and social get-togethers and like that. It's it all, not all, I'm exaggerating. Much of it is done by the parents,
Mm.
and the kids are not learning to, I don't know, manage conflict and organize things and get
Mm.
groups together and have healthy arguments and debates and what have you. It's a different environment, and I think you don't learn as much about yourself if you're not taking the initiative and, getting together with your peers periodically, and they're not growing as
Mm.
much as they could be or should be.
That's an interesting point that you raise. I mean, because that's not something I've experienced, but I haven't been around and paid that because I have a 14-year-old son, and if he doesn't
Yeah,
organize his stuff or he forgets something, um, he's forgotten it. I don't.
yeah,
I'm not taking it. It's like you get
yeah,
your stuff organized, and I've been like that for a
yeah,
while, and he has to juggle
yeah,
that between two homes. So he has
yeah.
to work out what he's doing. It's
Hmm.
fascinating, but like you say, if you don't have that experience of organizing yourself, um, how can you actually you can't do it. So
Mm,
is it really on the parents from that perspective to say, "Hey, they need to step back and go, you need to."
mm,
I
yeah.
had that with my
I think you're right.
yeah.
Yeah.
How does 'cause I mean, obviously, it's not for well, there's a certain age I'm guessing a child gets to where they're gonna have to decide that for themselves, but how do you encourage parents to say, "Hey, you need to step back?" I mean, and it's not I don't think it's hard. And I'll give an example. My son was a number of years ago was doing karate, and he wasn't doing the work. And I was talking with his sensei, who's become a friend, and he said, "Yeah, he's not going to pass." And I didn't say
Hmm.
anything. I said, "Well, he's going to do it. He's going to go through
Hmm.
it and go through that process." So he's gone to
Hmm.
the grading. All of his friends and everybody at that same level he was at passed. He didn't.
Hmm.
And as
Hmm.
we walked out of there, I said, "How did that feel?" And he goes, "I hated it."
Mm, mm,
I
mm,
hated it.
mm,
Is it a
mm.
case that I mean, because is do we need to have those failures to help round us? But fail in a good way. Is participation trophies a bad thing?
Yeah, it's kind of today, everyone gets a trophy. The 10th
Mm,
place person in an event gets a trophy, just like the first place person.
yeah.
Everybody is the winner. Um, so you don't have those defining moments when you get cut from a team, or you don't, qualify for the karate level that you're going after, or whatever it happens to be. And those are defining moments that make you step back and think and reflect about what you did or didn't do, how much commitment you had. Did you put in the effort and time to succeed?
Mm,
What changes do you have to make? My son in seventh grade got cut from the basketball team,
mhm,
and he loved playing basketball. It was a defining moment for him,
mm,
and he recommitted himself to getting in great shape and
mm,
practicing and learning some techniques and what have you. And sure enough, he made the team next year and went on and got better and better and did very well at it.
mm,
But without that getting cut from the team, he never would have gotten the energy or inspired to do what he had to do to succeed.
mm,
Now, also, if I jumped in and said, "Oh no, everything's okay, and you're fine, and don't worry about it, pick another sport," and kind of let him off the hook, that wouldn't have been good either.
mm,
Sometimes those painful experiences are where you learn the most and you find out a lot about yourself,
mm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, because I mean, that's interesting you mentioned about basketball because I heard a similar story about Michael Jordan. He got cut not because he wasn't
yeah, from
talented.
his high
Yeah.
school team, right?
Yeah,
Right.
they said,
Right.
"Look,
Good
you're really
point.
talented, but your attitude's not right, so
Yeah.
you're getting cut."
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and from that perspective, because I wonder about that when we take it a little bit further, because we're talking about, boys and men here. And
Hmm.
do boys and men need that little bit of extra tough love? I remember a friend was telling me about there was a study. Well, it wasn't a study. What they did, and I can't remember why they did it. It was to do with elephants, and they took the older male elephants out of the area for some reason. I don't know why that is. So I can't answer that. But they
Hmm.
took all the old male elephants out, and then they found after a period of time in this wildlife park, all these animals were dying, like being killed.
Hmm.
Lions and everything were being killed. And what they found was it was the
Hmm.
younger male elephants that were actually, charging them and tusking these animals and killing them. And they needed
Hmm.
to bring back. And when they brought back the older male elephants, all of a sudden they had, effectively mentors. I'm guessing that's what you put it down to, and it all stopped. And from that
Hmm.
perspective, sorry, I had two questions there. I got sidetracked. With the mentoring of men, do they need to have those older men around them? Because I was kind of lucky. I went when I was younger. I used to go and play golf and lawn bowls with my dad, and then I'd get sent off. I think my dad got sick of me, and he sent me off.
Hmm.
Play golf as a pair of four. Oh, no, a pair of four of
Yeah.
four in number. So I'd go and play with three other older men, and
Hmm.
that's 4.5 hours walking around a golf course where I had that experience with these other men. But are
Hmm.
young boys, young men getting enough of that experience with older men today?
Well, I think I used to, my wife and I, let me back up a little bit. My wife would make it too easy on our children.
Mm,
And when you make it too easy on your kids, they don't learn the lessons that they need to learn.
mm,
Being responsible, finding out who they are, putting in the hard work, all that type of stuff. So I was forever saying to my wife, don't make it too easy on them.
mm,
Let them earn their grades in school. Let them earn their spot on the team, or let them earn whatever it might be.
yeah.
And when you earn it, you feel a lot better about yourself. You figure out what it took to achieve that,
Mm,
and you are, more confident going forward.
mm,
So I think sometimes the older men in the community or in your family and I don't know, share that point of view with the younger men.
mm,
And I think that that is an important, I don't know, message and approach, and helps the child or helps the young man develop and learn what it takes to succeed. So
mm,
I think mentoring is an important thing. But I do think some woman that I've come across, I think my wife, for example, is a very good mentor. She's very
mm.
um, firm in her beliefs, and she's a real leader as well. And she's been effective. So it's not like it just has to be men. I mean, women can be very good mentors as well. But we know women are a little bit more towards the nurturing side, and they want to, make things make the child happy, and they hate to see them go through any pain or
Mm.
distress, as we all do. But I don't know, they jump in and try to relieve that pain and distress maybe a little bit quicker than the man.
Yeah, and that's a very good point that you raise there, and it is that's the whole point of men and women getting together. They have different strengths.
Yeah.
I was quite, I didn't have the best upbringing, but I had my parents had some really good things, and one of them, my mum was always saying, men and women are different, but
Yeah.
by being together, you become more, and you can learn from each
Hmm.
other. And you're
You're right.
very right on that. I mean, stereotypically, women are more nurturing and
Yeah.
understanding, whereas the men have that, do have it's like go and fall over, go and go splat. It's you're going to learn from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I had that. Oh, well, I was brought up like that, and so was, but I had very nurturing mum who cared a lot as well. Um,
Hmm.
from that side of things, is it, when we talk about it that as well, but do guys need a little bit of extra tough love as well from that? I went last year, we went skiing. My son and I skied for a long time, but a friend of my son came with us. Now, he hadn't skied pretty much at all.
Yeah.
And when we're out skiing, sometimes he'd get a little bit whiny and I'd be going, no, this is what you're doing. And as
Mm,
he's skiing, and I was giving him some instruction, and he'd be like, oh, and I always almost, there's times where I was almost yelling at him, saying, no,
mm,
wait on your outside foot, wait on your outside foot as you're going around the corner.
mm,
And I knew I could do that because I knew his parents and they'd be okay with that. But it was really
mhm,
tough on him. But what he did, he went from someone that had skied, I think, half a day to skiing blue runs in the 5 days were at the snow. So
mm,
he had the ability. He just needed to be pushed in a tough way.
mhm. Yeah.
But do guys need that extra, tough love to push them beyond those boundaries?
I think some do. Some, are have their own initiative and they're
Mm,
risk takers and they want to go for it. But some, yeah, some need that extra little, push to get them going. To it's
mm.
like the bird pushing the little bird out of the nest to teach it to fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it varies person to person, but yeah, sometimes that definitely is needed.
Yeah, and I'm talking about it from the perspective of, in a nurturing way, not saying,
Yeah,
you're a
I
hopeless piece
understand.
of crap. Yeah.
Right.
Because there's, but in a firm way, having a extra firmness that you probably, to do that. And from that
It's
side.
kind of like on that point, Damien, it's kind of like doing it in a way that you show that you believe in the person,
Mm,
you believe in their capabilities, they can do it. If they
yeah.
just work at it and keep going and learning, they're going to succeed. That's the message you want to convey in that environment.
Yeah, because that's where I'm wondering, have we got to this stage where it's not only have we been handing out a lot of participation trophies where they haven't had that experience of, I got a knockback, but I can get up again. I relay that
Mhm.
to an experience I had after because I was in the military here, and when I got out of the military, I was fluffing around, not really doing much, and then a friend said,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's good money to be earned up in the mines." I went, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea." And so what I did was I wrote a letter of application. This before computers because I'm older than I look.
Mhm.
Handwritten letter of application, and I sent that
Yeah.
off. I identified the biggest 5 companies that did this, and I sent off an application. Then the next day, I wrote another letter and sent off. I did this every day for 2 weeks, and then one company
Mhm.
called up, and that's what I'm wondering from that perspective. You know, having that experience of one going, okay, we've lost that ability to, because we've been giving out these participation trophies, they've lost this ability to just keep trying. But then
Mm.
also too, from that perspective of now there's, so that they haven't learned how to keep trying, and then there is a bit of pushback. Or every now and then someone might yell at you, so you go, oh, and they're shying away, so they haven't worked out
Yeah.
what they believe, and now they're
Mhm.
not only are they don't have the confidence to give it a go, they're worried about getting in trouble for saying something wrong. Do we need to add a bit of tough love there and say, like you said, you have the ability, you are powerful, go out there and give it a go.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Tough love is a good thing. It shows you believe in the person. You know that they can succeed. You're encouraging them. You're affirming them, if you will. So I think that's very important at the right time. But as you point out, Damien, the way it's delivered is really important as well.
Mm,
I mean, you keep some parents, you're a loser and you're not going to succeed, and they're all negative, and there's nothing positive in their message. Well, that's not helpful either.
no.
That can really turn a kid off.
Yeah, well, from that perspective, when we look at young boys as well in leadership, what about because there's a lot of talk about men not asking for help. And again,
Yeah.
I think I don't really remember this specifically, but I was a young kid around a lot of adults doing something that was new. I'm guessing I was asking questions, so I think I grew up with that. But
Yeah.
is it, from that perspective, young men or even older men lost the ability to ask for help? Is that like a masculine thing where it's seen, oh, it's not manly to ask someone for help?
Yeah, I think that's somewhat true. I think some kids that I've seen still ask for help, but I think there's a theme that if you're asking for help, you're needy, and you should be able to. You shouldn't need to do that, you know. So I think it is part of the equation or a factor. Yeah, yeah.
Is that something, do you think, again, is a mentoring thing where they've learnt that from their parents as opposed to broader society?
Um, ask asking questions, I think, is an important skill for everybody.
Mm,
And we encourage, my wife and I encourage our grandchildren to ask questions. And
mm,
every night at dinner, when they're visiting us, we ask them a lot of questions. And then we say to them, okay, what questions do you have for us?
I love that.
And when we first started to do this, they had nothing, you know, and I'd say to them, okay, you have nothing, no curiosity, nothing you wonder about, nothing you want to learn more about. And
Mm,
they'd kiddingly say, no, no, I'm fine. I don't want to, nothing on my mind, you know?
yeah.
So as the interactions have gone on, they've gotten used to our behavior. So now they do come with questions, you know?
Yeah.
So questions are important. That's the way you find out information. That's the way you gain knowledge about the things that are important to you. So, you know,
Mm.
it's a skill, and it's pretty easy to, if you put a little time and effort into it, you can come up with some really great questions, I think, to help you gain the knowledge that you want to get better at what you want to get better at.
That's an interesting point because I hadn't thought about it from the perspective of it being a skill that's learned. But I think that's a great example for the listeners of going, well, hey, asking questions is actually a skill.
Yeah,
How would
yeah.
someone develop that?
Well, I think it's putting the time into it. As I said earlier, one of the styles that managers use is discussing.
Hmm.
And when you have a good discussion, you have good questions. The better the questions, the better the discussion. So
Mm,
a lot of people think they can wing it. You know, I'll go into the meeting and the questions will just pop in my head and I'll ask the questions.
yeah.
Well, that doesn't always happen. So prior to the meeting, thinking
Mm,
about and writing down what are the, you know, 5, 7, 8 questions that you want to ask in the meeting to get clarity around what is the problem or what is the opportunity, what are
mm,
the issues we need to explore. Um, I used to think about what questions need to be answered at today's meeting.
yeah.
You know, so it was kind of one way I looked at it. But so my bottom line is preparation, taking
Mm,
the time to think about and write down the questions that you want to explore and discuss. And if you do that, you'll have a much better discussion, I think, with the person you're interacting with.
mm. So from that perspective, when you're asking, asking questions, but I want to step back a little bit to the point where you said about, you're going to go in there and wing it. Um,
Yeah.
and where I want to go with this is perception and reality. Because a lot of times, I think from what people see, from what I've seen anyway, for example, you might have, or a story I'm going to share is, you might look at, just say a James Bond movie. A young guy looks at that and goes, oh, he's always successful with women, as an example.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
really all you're getting is a 2-hour snapshot, and even then, when you look at all the actual screen time or his interactions with women, he's probably interacting with 2 or 3 women, and and in those 2 hours.
Hmm.
And I relay that in context to a guy that I was in the army with. And he was a reasonably good-looking guy, but we all thought he was pretty dumb.
Mhm.
And that was just, just our thinking. But he was always dating these amazing women. They were beautiful, they
Mhm.
were intelligent, they were kind, just complete package.
Mhm.
And we couldn't
Yeah.
work it out. We're going,
Yeah.
myself and my friends are going, how is this happening? And
Yeah.
the obvious conclusion, we thought he was well hung. That was what we put it
Yeah.
down to. But one day we I decided to ask him. I said, Shane, I walked up to him and I did. I said this. I said, Shane, you're not that bright. How is it you're dating all these women? And he didn't flinch at that comment, but he did put his arm around me, turned into this wise old sensei, and he said, Damien, what you don't see is I ask a lot. Most of them say no. You just see the ones that say yes.
Mm.
And I wonder from a guy perspective, using that as an analogy, how often do we misconstrue a perception of how things should be as
Mm.
opposed to the reality, and thinking, well, actually, I've got to do this a couple of times, or if I'm doing something new, I'm going to have what's called beginners suck. I'm not going to be good at. You mentioned about playing tennis before.
Mm.
I know I've played tennis. When I started playing tennis, I wasn't great at it at all. I was
Mm.
terrible. Um,
Mhm.
when we start something new, so how often do people have that perception, um, misconstrued perception of reality, and then as a result, give up too easily?
Well, what they see is the end result of all the practice time and the hard work and the
Mhm.
lessons and what have you. The great tennis players practice 6, 7, 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
and we don't see that. We see them playing on the court with a lot of people around the court
Mm,
watching them play, and it's exciting and what have you, but we don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into all the prep time and the hard work and all that.
mm,
Um, a lot of people, if they saw what it took to become a great tennis player or great golfer or whatever it might be, would give up because they're not willing to put in the 7 or 8 hours,
mm.
7 days a week to become great at it.
Yeah.
So that's a reality. To succeed in most things. It takes hard work and time and effort and reflection and coaching and all those things.
How much from a leadership perspective, if you're a leader, how important is it to have that because I love that, and I refer to this for listeners, apologies, you've heard this before, but you see those charts and it says, the plan, and they've got, someone starting here and there's this nice smooth road and they got the result. And then they go, what
Yeah.
actually happens? And it's all over the shop and
Right.
trees. But
Yeah.
in my mind, that was the bottom one was always the reality. How important
Yeah.
is it for a leader to understand the reality, have a good concept of reality?
Well, I think it's important because that's what they're going to face, and that's how it's going to unfold for most people. It's not a straight line. There's ups and downs
Mm,
and bumps on the road, and there's a lot of setbacks, and there's a lot of relearning and reflecting on what happened and all that. Um, but sometimes it's like being a parent. You can tell someone what it's going to be like and what they're going to have to do and all that. But until they become a parent,
mm.
it doesn't sink in and the reality doesn't hit them until the kid's waking up at 3 a.m. and you got to get out of bed and go see what's happening.
Yeah.
Sometimes with leadership, you could tell them all these things and they kind of listen and what have you, but until they get involved and they have the responsibility of a team or a group or
Mhm.
department, it's a different ball game.
And is it a case like when you're a leader, and we're talking about leading yourself as well as a guy leading yourself, is it important to have those, plan for those knockbacks? I look at it, using a sales example because with my business consultancy where we work in grow businesses revenue and profit. One of the things we look at is from the sales perspective. It's like you're mad if you think you're going to go out there and knock on someone's door and you're going to get the sales straight. Yes, it does happen, but more often than
Mm.
not, it's going to be 6 or 7 times. In today's world, it's probably more like 10 and 11 times that you're going to
Yeah,
have to be in front of them before you're going to get the sale. So you need to
yeah.
be prepared for these knockbacks. Is that something, if you're leading yourself as a guy leading himself, he needs to go, okay, I'm going to get these knockbacks, and that's okay. That's part of that process.
Yeah, I think sales and leadership are similar in the sense that you're selling your vision
Mm,
or selling your ideas or selling your proposal. Just like selling products and services, you get a lot of rejection, right?
mm,
There's a lot of people saying, no, 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 I don't want it. I don't need it. You know, they're
mm,
not convinced.
yeah,
Same thing with leadership.
mm,
And you got to be willing to take all those no's
yeah,
and reflect on it and think about, how do I fine tune my message? How do I appeal more to the person? What did I miss? You know,
mm,
how can I frame my message differently so next time they'll say yes, you know, to my proposal if I'm a leader. So
yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about, are you willing to take a lot of the negative reactions and criticisms and, you know, comments you're going to get that people aren't going to buy what you have. You know, they're
Mm.
not going to buy what you're saying.
How much of it too is a understanding that people do have differences of opinion, that's okay. It's more about finding your own tribe that you get along with.
Yeah,
Particularly, and I'm I'm using myself as an example, if you're getting involved with an intimate partner, it's important that that person likes you. Don't date
yeah,
someone that doesn't like you or
yeah,
kind of likes you, but, doesn't like certain things.
yeah.
How important is it to be able to identify? I mean, obviously, that comes back to what you said at the start about knowing yourself, but if you've done that step, how important is it to recognize that some people are not gonna be on the same page, and that's okay?
Well, I was reading an article recently. It was in the Harvard Business Review, and it was talking about the fact that with organizational change, that if you can get 20% or so of the people involved in the change supporting your ideas,
Mm,
there's a good chance it'll keep moving forward, it'll make progress, it'll
mm,
gain momentum, you know, that type of thing.
yeah,
So finding the people who believe in your ideas, believe in your proposal, will support it, will
mm,
speak up for it, I think is very important.
mm,
Uh, a lot of people keep trying to convince the naysayers and the real negative people, the people that don't believe in it, and they don't gravitate to the ones that are more pro your proposal, your
mm,
ideas. And they'd be better off if they, like you said, find their tribe, find the group that supports their idea, work with them, give them voice, give them
mm.
opportunities to speak up and support it. And if they did that, I think they'd have a much better chance of making it stick and be successful.
It's interesting that you mentioned the Pareto principle there, the 80-20 rule. You get that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that, the 20 if you get 20%
yeah,
or
yeah,
yeah. That's an
yeah.
interesting one because I mean, what you're talking about there is the first follower principle. Essentially, if you as a leader, you're looking to inspire and encourage those people that are supportive of it, because then they'll go out and champion your cause. Is that where you're
Right.
going with that?
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
And from that, that's what I'm wondering from, again, when you're looking at the guys that are sitting there, in the basement because they're scared to get out, is it something being aware of that principle of going, well, okay, there's probably 80% that are probably not going to like. Well, it's not really, but let's say there
Mhm,
is.
mhm,
It's surprising how much when you go out there and actually speak to people, how many people are actually in enjoy talking with you. I'm
mm.
wondering about that. But is it a case of going, okay, you're going to speak to some people, they're probably not going to be on your page, but that's okay. Just move on to and find
Mhm.
someone that you do connect with. Is that what we should be encouraging young guys?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think you need to try to, you know, persuade or present your case or your message in the best possible way.
Mm,
Sometimes people don't buy what you're selling because the way you frame it, the way you present it, the examples you use, the
mm,
statistics don't connect with them. So sometimes you gotta, you know, think about, what do I need to do differently to make the sale next time?
mm,
Um, but I think there are, there's some people, no matter what you say or do, they're not going to be convinced. They're not going to buy it. You're almost wasting your time dealing with them. You're better off moving on to those that have some openness and some interest and some, I don't know, support for your approach and direction you want to go in.
Yeah, because that's an interesting point. I had a friend who had a business that was making cardboard tubes, the postal tubes, and he bought a
Yeah,
machine that could do this cheaper and faster than
yeah,
anything else in the area. And he cleaned up all the business except for one client. He could never get them, and they were never did. They had a relationship with the other supplier, and they were always going to maintain that. Um,
yeah,
and you're right. Sometimes people are not going to buy into that. Where
yep.
does, from that perspective, and this is, I think it's a big one in leadership, is listening fall into that? Because, from that perspective, I mean, we've heard it said before, if you want to be interesting, be interested in other people.
Hmm.
From a young
Hmm.
guy perspective, how much do we need to be encouraging them rather than, sitting there and, because I find social media is a lot like this now, and certainly debates are. And your last presidential election, I think, was a key example of a debate is two narcissists trying to beat the opinion into the other
Mm,
person,
mm,
and obviously they're not good examples for as role models. Do we need
mm,
to have the other way of having some discussion around, hey, the whole point you mentioned about that learning from other people's opinion, even though you might not agree, but listening, is that, having that experience of teaching and role modeling, listening for the younger people and go out there, because I know from my perspective, I get along well with a lot of people, but a lot of times I'm asking questions and just listening.
hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's critically important. More listening would go a long way.
Mm,
Um, People don't listen. They just want to quickly state their view and react, and nothing gets really accomplished when that happens.
yeah.
We get polarization. Our
Mm,
country's polarized. It's just
mm,
people don't talk to each other anymore. There's no little to no listening.
mm,
Um, it's not good, you
yeah.
know? You don't really get to understand the arguments and the facts and the rationale supporting the person's point of view. They don't even go there. It's
Yeah.
just, no, you're an idiot. That doesn't work. You're crazy. And it turns into an emotional attack of the two people,
Mm.
and nothing gets resolved. Nothing gets, I don't know, there's no improvement.
Is that something that we need to have for young men as well? Because men traditionally, if I can speak, were, we would do is we went out and we fix things. And I know that was my thing when I was younger. English was never a subject that I was great at school, largely because I thought I couldn't spell. Which, I kind
Mm.
of fixed that later in life. But I was always good at doing things. But do you think part of the reason, because what you're talking about there with listening, we expand that to communication, that's more of a soft skill, that men
Mm.
haven't had that time to, or the training to learn these soft skills so they can actually, articulate their feelings or articulate what it is their opinion's going to, that they want to get across. And then, they start to get frustrated, and obviously bigger and stronger, that can manifest itself and look like anger and aggression. Is there more communication skills that need to be taught to young men?
I think communicating and listening and leading, uh, they're really lifelong skills. It's something you
Mm,
got to continuously work at.
mm,
Listening, asking good questions, learning how to probe,
mm,
learning how to hold back and hold back on your thoughts, and really ask good questions to really fully understand what the other person is thinking, and
mm.
why they think that way, what's behind it, what have their experiences been like. I think that is so important, and it's a lifelong journey. I mean, it's something you got
Mm.
to just keep working at. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by the age of 18. It's something. It takes a lifetime.
I love the word that you used there, probe. Um, because I have a
Mm.
negotiation program, Negotiation Magic, that I teach large corporates, and that's a key element because the
Mm.
probing is finding out what
Yeah.
is, well, from a negotiation point of view, you're aiming to find out what's the range of negotiation. But, from
Yeah.
a relationship point of view, I mean, if you're dating and you're meeting someone, you want to probe and find out, is this going to be a good partner to be with? Because it might be,
Yeah.
someone who's not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I, with our grandkids, as I was saying earlier, we ask them questions at dinner
Mm,
and we do a lot of probing. They'll
yeah.
say they like this sport, whatever. And it's like, well, why do you like it? What do you most like about it?
Mm,
When this happens, how do you feel? So there's a lot
mm,
of probing to get their thoughts and ideas behind their comments. And we're trying to teach them that you not only need to ask the question, but you need to then go deeper and dig
mm,
and find out what's behind it. What's the person's experiences and their beliefs, and what has led them to that point of view, if you will. And I
yeah.
think that's very important.
What you're talking about there is again that relationship skills for again for guys. It's, I mean, this show's about for guys, but it applies to both genders. Um, is there, if we want to sum this up, because I know you got a tennis game to go to, and we've probably gone a little bit longer than we planned to be. You seem to be having
No, it's
fun,
been
so
interesting.
yeah, you seem to be having fun. If we're going to sum this up, I want you to get your tennis game. Um, what is, if you were to sum up, put in not a nutshell, something for the people to take away, the listeners to take away, how would you sum up, a framework for being manly?
Well, I think number one, take time to get clarity on what you think and believe, or believe and feel.
Mm,
Um, and that is hard work, takes
mm,
time, reflection, open to other people, ask a lot of questions. But take time each day, 10, 15 minutes to reflect on what happened today, what surprised you,
mm,
what went well, what can you learn from certain events. And it's probably good if you focus in on one or two events and you probe that event in your mind. Why
mm,
did I say what I did? Why didn't I ask this? How
mm,
did I interpret what the other person said? What were my assumptions? So reflecting and probing yourself to
mm,
get clarity on, what you think, what you believe, is number one. Number two is finding the courage and confidence to state your view.
mm,
Now, if you believe in something strongly, you're more confident to state it and defend it.
mm,
Even if the person doesn't agree or they have a different viewpoint, that's okay. But if you really believe in something, you're willing to state it and support it and argue for your point of view. And I think
mm.
that's important. So I think those two things would be two that would go a long way to helping a young person who wants to be more of a leader to step up and take those actions and start their journey to being a leader.
Wonderful. That's sage advice, Paul. That really is, wonderful advice
Mm.
for the listeners, certainly for young men out there looking for, how to face it out there with thinking, but yeah, knowing what you want and having the courage to stand up for that. And
Mm.
you mentioned before about being respectful as well. So I'm assuming that was, implied, because
Yeah,
that was something.
always respect is so important for every interaction, and
Mm,
that goes across the board, that you need to respect people and be open to their point of view.
fantastic. Paul, so wonderful having you on the show and sharing your view. So much wonderful advice there. Thank you very much. Now go and play your tennis game, and I hope you do well and enjoy. So, but thank you for taking
All
the
right,
time.
Damien, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the discussion, and I hope your listeners will pick up a tip or two to be a better leader and make a bigger difference out there. So thank you.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes for others and for you.